Welcome to Come and See, your podcast for finding truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. With host and founder Richard Case and co-host and retreat leader Kathy Ricconi. Join us every weekday at this time to discuss news, spend time in the Word, and receive answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. And now your host, Richard Case.
Well, good morning, Kathy.
Good morning.
We are in our series on prayer, and it's been kind of fun. I've had lots of opportunity, I'm sure you have too, because you and I are spending time in this again. Lots of people are going through, what really is prayer, and I'm praying for, and I can then talk to them and say, okay, tell me about that.
Right.
Tell me about your process and what's happening and what does that look like? And because of what you and I are learning, I'm saying, well, maybe, and usually the question is around, it doesn't seem like many of my prayers are being answered.
Right.
I pray, and God says we're supposed to pray, and I know who I'm praying to, but I don't see much happening, and how come? And then I don't say, well, because I just say, well, talk to me about how you're approaching it. What do you see? What do you understand? What do you think prayer is? And they always don't really know. I guess I'm just supposed to let God know my problems and let my requests be made known, and hopefully it works out. And I said, well, how do you expect answers? Well, I've been taught it's yes, maybe no. Okay. How do you know? How do you determine yes, maybe no? Well, by what happens. I said, well,
right. Judging strictly on circumstance. Really.
I said, there's one big fundamental problem with that. Throughout Scripture, particularly we in the New Testament, it's been told to us the just, the righteous, the holy live by faith, not by sight. In other words, if you're living by let's see what happens, God says, well, you can't live that way.
Right.
Okay, we got to learn. We got to understand. You got to learn something different. Also, He tells us that no eye has seen, no ear has heard what I prepared for you, and you can't receive it with your logic. It only comes through revelation. So the way to walk with me in prayer can't be just give me a list, and then I'll let you know by experience whether it's yes, no, maybe. And by the way, most of the time it turns out to be no, and you kind of get used to it.
Right.
It's like, well, I'll pray. I doubt it, but I pray, And he said, yeah, exactly. So we go back to, and what I do is I take them back to, all right, let's go back to fundamental. Jesus was asked, Luke 11, by his disciples, how are we supposed to pray?
Teach us to pray, yeah.
And he says, well, you pray to my Father, so it's personal. Dad knows what he's doing. And by the way, he's not just a good dad. He's absolute omnipresent, omnipotent, and powerful dad that can not only give you wisdom, but actually make things happen. So pray to that guy, pray to him. And then he said, thy kingdom come. So we have to live in his kingdom. And again, it's because he's the king, and his kingdom means he's ruling. Which
means we've surrendered.
Which I'm surrendered because I'm not ruling. And that crosses me over into the kingdom by just saying, I have a heart to follow you instead of me. And then he said, when you're there, thy will be done. Ask for thy will to be done. He said, so what I do is help people with, you're approaching prayer as a wish list of things that you think should happen that would better your life, which is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, God, would you take care of it? And let me know if you do. And if you don't, I guess it wasn't meant to be.
Right.
And I have to live with it.
And honestly, often not expecting a lot.
And not expecting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that as we've learned that there's a lot of ways that we hinder this. And the fundamental way is that we just aren't in the kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, I can't deliver to you the answer because you're not even with me. And the way I portray it, and I've experienced this myself, is that you pray and you're asking.
Mm-hmm.
And then even then, you kind of like an answer. And I hear God, and this happens to me too, because I do this.
Right.
Hey, Rich. It's kind of like, hey, Rich. I'd like to answer your question, but you're not here with me that I can answer it. You're going to have to come back. I can't deliver my answer to you because you've left. You went back into your own process, your own decision making, and I want to give it to you, but you got to come back.
You got to stay with me.
You got to stay with me. So our hindering is that, well, we either don't think about it, we don't care about it, we walk away, we decide, what to do. We regard iniquity as okay. We talked about that in our end times, about good to bad, good to evil, and evil to good. We have got to understand we have a spiritual enemy that is attacking us to try to thwart our ability to receive and hear and walk out of the kingdom. We don't have a heart to go to unity with our inner circle, which usually is good friend, spouse, small group, people that are going to help us, and we don't even work at going to unity, which is the great privilege of understanding God's will. It's what do we do with that? Well, we've learned about that, and so God says, well, let me show you, if you have a heart to be with me in the kingdom, if you have a heart to seek my will, I'm going to tell you, biblically God speaking, what are the conditions for me to fulfill prayer. And by the way, it'll be 100% of the time, all the time. You'll have every prayer answered. Now, by the way, and the key thing that I didn't say every wish answered.
Right.
It's every prayer answered because we're going to pray, appropriately. So let's look at the first one, and then we're going to talk about a question that came up to us. But the first one is to pray in his name, and that's very interesting what that means. So go to John 14, 12 to 14.
It says, most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. And whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it.
Yeah. So he says the works, and he's referring there to God's supernatural work of things that only he can do. It's not natural. He didn't say, you'll just get better at managing life. He says, no, the Father is at work. The Father's doing miraculous things that are supernatural. And think of the word supernatural as just not natural.
Right.
It's just things that only God can do that demonstrates my power, my ability, to do it. Linda and I were sharing actually on our calls this morning. Everybody, that's been listening to the podcast know that, we had our daughter pass away recently, and you go through these moments of finality, and it hits you, and it really, just gets your
grief.
Just grief.
Waves
It's
of
really
grief.
waves of grief, and we were up in the mountains and processing this, and we were in Vail, Colorado, and we were just walking. We had just had dinner, and we were walking, which is a long way, to our car in a parking garage. And we come out of the restaurant, and these three girls pass us, and they have a strong smell of perfume. And that was one of the Michelle's characteristics. Is
Yes.
she loved? We discovered, Linda discovered she probably had 30 bottles of perfume. I mean,
She loved
we
her perfume.
we knew that she loved it, but she and whenever we were with Michelle, that fragrance was always noticeable. And it wasn't offensive. It was just pleasant. It was like, ooh, that's Michelle.
Yep.
Okay, well, these girls pass up, and they have this very strong fragrance. And immediately, Linda and I look at each other and say, that's Michelle. Oh, yeah, Michelle. And, we talked a little bit about it. And of course, they kept going. We actually stopped. We were talking about it. And then, okay, let's go. We go to the thing. Well, we go to the car. And that smell of perfume followed us to the car. And we were overwhelmed by it.
Right.
Well, first of all, it wasn't natural.
Right.
We knew it was God. And he was just saying, as we were processing it, is Michelle is still enjoying fragrance. And
sweet.
She's still who she is, and she's enjoying her life here, and you can trust this. And it caught our attention because God says, I'm going to do these supernatural works. And then he puts it in this verse. He said, hey, by the way, you're going to be doing more than me. Well, that's an interesting thing. And he uses the word greater works than these. Well, as we dig into that word, because again, in the English, we elevate greater to mean more significant.
Bigger, yeah,
grander and more powerful. So, and I was processing this a long time ago, and God said, well, he said, that's not what it means. He says, can you do better than resurrection? No, sorry. You can't do greater work than I've done. You can't do it. There is no greater work than I've done. It's greater. It's just simply more in numbers.
Right.
That you'll be doing many, 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 many more. And think about when Jesus made that statement. It's that why? Well, because at the moment there were only 12 of them and a few others. Right. That were doing stuff through Jesus because he was there physically, but now I'm going to be in you permanently, and I'll be in millions of people. Right. And it's the way it's supposed to go, which, by the way, it happened in Acts, is every one of you is supposed to be doing great works. Right. Now, and then he tells us how. Okay, so you will be experiencing. So he said, if you're going to see answers to prayer, it's because you're going to experience my supernatural work, which is going to come through you in your circumstance, in your situation, in your problem, in your difficulty, in your life, in your decision, in your walking down the street.
We actually are going to have this today. What we're taping right now, I believe, airs December 20th. Yeah. Which is right in the middle, sandwiched between, if you did not hear part 1 yet, on the 15th, Josh and Emily are going to be sharing. And again, part 2 this Thursday on the 22nd. And the story that they're going to share that actually involves their entire move to New Hampshire and the process of prayer through this, and the specific and incredible supernatural stories. And it's not just, it is like supernatural story after supernatural story after supernatural story of every step bathed in prayer that will blow your socks off. And so if you missed that, go back and listen to Thursdays, and then be sure to tune into this Thursdays, because what Rich is talking about right now is going to have an incredibly concrete example for you guys to hear walked out.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be beautiful. Yeah, and do pay attention to that. And so he says that because you're walking with me, all of you should be experiencing supernatural things. And by the way, that's how the church grew in Acts, was supernatural stuff was happening through everybody because they really grabbed hold of it. And he says, if you pray according to what? In my name, it'll be done. Okay, now, it doesn't mean add my name at the end of your prayer.
It's funny you say that because
Yeah.
that was like growing up. I'm a Southern girl. And so a prayer was only effective, like literally, that was what we were taught. Prayer was only effective if at the end I said, in Jesus' name, amen.
Right.
That was the rote way to put a stamp of approval on your
That's
prayer.
it. Yeah, ask in his
Yeah.
name. Put that at the end. And he's saying no. He said it's about authority that my name is, remember, and there's a great, we've actually discussed this before, but Jesus' name, God's name, is I am. I am everything that there is available to fulfill life for you because I'm all powerful. And so when you pray in his name, it's praying under the authority that is given to us, and we are the one to exercise it into our situation by believing it, speaking it, and being involved with it, because we've received in his name. I understand his will. I understand what he now says. And because of that authority, we can then fulfill it because we've been given that authority. So let me give you a couple of thoughts about that. For us that are in business, if I'm the CEO of a company, I report to, like Dan. Dan's the CEO. Dan reports to a board.
Yes.
And in my company, we have a board. I'm responsible for identifying, securing, and closing on acquisitions. Dan, is responsible for a variety of big things actually happening in his company right now. And even though we're titled, even though we're part of it, I can't just go out and buy a company.
Right.
I don't have the authority to do that unless the board says, I give you that authority. I say, yes, you can now go and sign it as a representative of the company, and we will back it up and pay for it. By the way, if we don't...
Basically in the name of the company.
In the name. Now, you're not doing it in the name of Rich, and you haven't decided to do it in my name all by yourself, because you can't.
Right.
You have to have permission. You have to have authority. You have to have approval. And now you can go do it. So my question, as I'm looking at an acquisition, or Dan's looking at these big things that's going on with him, well, board, is that okay if I do that? And the board either says, yeah, let's go do that. And I know Dan's in the middle of selecting certain things. Well, they haven't selected it yet. Why? Because the board hasn't said so. So authority in his name is you're always representing something else that has given you authority to be able to fulfill what you just asked for.
Right.
So when you pray in his name, it's implying, what is my instruction? What is your will? Now do I have the authority to fulfill that because you spoke it? Because I know something. And Jesus even said it. It's not you even doing those works. It's the Father who's doing the works. He's just going to do them through you. As you pray, what about this? What do you got to say about this? What's your will about this? What can I stand on, believe, and execute and believe in prayer? Because you gave me a yes. This is it. I'll give you another simple example. I might have shared this before. We were having a retreat. And we generally, our first retreat is always learning to abide. And it's abide in the Word and understand the Word. And so most people that come, I would say, aren't really, let's say, mature in being in the Word of God. Sometimes they are, but generally they're not. So they haven't experienced much supernatural stuff at all. They've been more in the natural. And they didn't understand what it meant to walk with God and to be in the kingdom and seek His will and see things happen. So they're just coming, to learn it because they saw. They see other people that say, "Man, your life really became powerful. Could that happen to me?" Yeah, sure.
Right.
Let's go learn about it. So we have this group, couples, all immature in the Word, and they haven't experienced miraculous at all. So we get around the table. We always start our retreat with a dinner. And we had this big table. And we noticed at the end of the table that a lady's really sick. And she's coughing and she's sweating and we can see it. And it just so happened that was when it was a similar thing to COVID, but it was called SARS.
I remember this. Yeah.
And it was highly contagious, and you got pretty in trouble. And it was really very similar because it was caused by coronavirus to COVID. And so she's at the end of the table, and I can see, and everybody can see that she's sick. And I had, Father, what's going on? And he says she's got SARS. And my first thought was, well, then I got to get her out of here.
Right.
But again, because we've learned something, is that, well, before you decide what you're going to do,
ask me.
why don't you ask, okay, Father, what do you have to say about this? And God says, get up and lay hands on her and I'll heal her. And it's like, you want me to get up and in front of these people that don't have any thought and are gonna think, what the heck is going on
and
here?
wonder what they're a part of this weekend.
Yeah, and you're giving me permission and telling me I'm supposed to go lay hands on her and she's going to get healed? Yes. In my name, you've asked me in my name, I'm giving you the permission, the authority that it will come through your healing, but you're going to have to get up and lay hands on her. Okay. So I get up and I say to the group, I said, look, we all know that this lady's sick. I said, yeah, she's got SARS. And everybody, you could just, like, this is,
Right.
maybe we should go. And I said, but God's going to heal her. I said, so God said he's going to heal her. He evidently decided to show you people something up front that you're going to experience over the weekend. So, stay with me here. And I'm going to lay hands. Everybody come with me and lay hands on her. And it was like, no way am I going to touch.
And who is this guy?
I am not going to touch this lady. I said, no, it'll be all right. Come on, come on and lay hands on her. So what they did is I'm there, Linda's there, and they put their hands on me. Like, nah, we're not touching her. Okay, that's okay. So I said, Father, with this lady's got SARS, she's sick. In the name of Christ, you said that you are going to heal her, and I pray and say yes. Would you please then fulfill what you just said and heal her? Okay. And then I say to her, I said, look, you go, and she happened to be in the main floor bedroom. I said, you and your husband go to bed, and tomorrow morning you're going to be fine. And so, okay, so they get up and go to bed. And the whole rest of the first night, everybody is looking at each other like, what,
little uneasiness, I'm sure.
What have we come to? And,
right.
I doubt if she's going to get healed. And, this will be, it'll be interesting to see what happens, So Saturday morning, we have breakfast, same table. And we're sitting there, and this lady and her husband walk out of the bedroom, and not only is she healed completely, but she's glowing. There's almost like
amazing.
There's almost like a light glow, and coming from her, and everybody was just overwhelmed by it. That, oh my gosh, she's healed. She's completely fine. There's not 1 ounce of having SARS or any problem at all. She's fine. Stays with us the whole rest of the day into the next day, and everybody got to, in a sense, jumpstart their desire to follow and then experience supernatural things, because God said, this is what I'm going to do. And again, it was out of this beautiful thing of praying in His name. He said a condition to answered prayer is that you gather in my name, you seek my power and my permission and my authority. And we'll talk more about this, because I also learned I can't just assume it.
Right.
That, well, hey, there's somebody that's sick, I'll go heal them. Well, there's more to it than that, And he said, I got to show you something as we go down the path here. But why don't you ask me? And when I say yes, I now tell you, you can go sign that check. You can go sign that document. You can go fulfill that. I now expect you to do it, because you're going to experience the greater work, because there's more numbers of them than I could do by myself, because I'm doing them through you and everybody else around you. But it's in his name, not tacking it on at the end of a prayer or assuming anything, but rather truly understanding, yes, my will is this. Now you have my authority to go and execute that. And we'll talk
Which
more.
takes stepping back and asking and dialoguing with him and waiting to hear him speak on it too.
Yes. Yeah. Without presumption and without assumption at all, but listening and processing, and always. And one thing we're trying to teach everybody is, and we've given you some great examples, lately. Even when it seems obvious, that we'll back up a step and always say, what do you have to say about this? So even when that guy who was greatly oppressed, that was thinking, well, of course this has got to be the enemy, before he went to that, even that likely assumption, well, what do you got to say about this? Actually, it's a little bit different than you think. Now let me give you that, and I'll give you the authority to learn this, and then I'm going to show you how to fulfill it, because my life is going to be grand. It's going to be covenant. It's going to be blessing. It's kingdom life, And so we'll talk more about this, about these conditions, but these next couple of sessions are going to go deeper into the what I call the if-thens, or the conditions or conditions, and it always starts with if. And here he says, if you ask in my name, it will be done. Well, then let's learn that. Let's meet that condition. So it's going to be really fun. Awesome. And then we're going to get into another one next time. Then we will bring up that we had this great question that come up, and we'll actually apply it in this next session that we do next time. So it'll be fun.
Oh, excellent. Okay. Sounds great. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. And as always, if you have questions, send them in at questions@afjministry.com. And we look forward to talking them through. This is a great segment that we're all going to benefit a lot from. Yep. So thanks, Rich, for sharing all of this, and have a great day.
Okay. See you soon.
Thank you for joining us for today's episode of Come and See, your podcast for truth in a world of chaos. Brought to you by All for Jesus Living Waters Ministry. Send us your questions and comments, and tune in tomorrow for more answers to your personal questions about living life in God's truth. Remember, God's will is best and none better. His truth brings peace in this world of chaos.